Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, me in and join in the fun. Travel all over Australia. Ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland brothers.
This week you sent us to the North Island of New Zealand, to the town of Otrohunga, where we film New Zealand's national animal, the Kiwi. We secure some very unusual film of the Kiwi under simulated nighttime conditions. It's the first time, we believe, this has ever been filmed.
Then we have a look at one of Australia's unique animals, the platypus. Now, does the platypus have a poison spur? Well, to answer this and a lot of other questions, we take a close-up look at this rarely seen Australian animal.
And can you imagine travelling hundreds of kilometres every day in order to go to school? Well, 6-year-old Sally Clark does. We show how Sally Clark manages to get an education living in the Outback. She lives on a sheep station out here near Cooarenebri in western New South Wales. When most people visit New Zealand, there's one particular creature they'd love to see, and that's the Kiwi. But it's very difficult being nocturnal. It's rarely seen during the daytime. But 12-year-old David Stewart has written to us. He's from Burnie in Tasmania, and he'd like us to bring the Kiwi to the screen for him. Well, we'll do our best, David, and to do that we've come to Otrohunga, a place where the local Zoological Society have established a special nighttime enclosure. That's a place where they've tricked the animals into thinking that it's in fact daytime when it's nighttime and nighttime when it's daytime.
Kiwis could well be the most difficult of all creatures to film. They're extremely timid, and we can only film these scenes by the dim light of the simulated moonlight in the enclosure. Our camera had to be kept behind soundproof glass, and it is only by electronically intensifying the images that we could even show this film. The keeper of the Kiwi house told us that no one had before successfully filmed the Kiwi under these natural conditions. These curious birds are only found in New Zealand, and there are 3 species altogether. Their natural habitat is dense forest, and being creatures of the night, they have acutely developed hearing and sense of smell. Their eyesight is poor, but their shaggy hair-like feathers must offer ideal camouflage, for the Kiwi has remained unchanged by evolution for 80 million years. This enclosure offers a unique opportunity to study the Kiwi's feeding habits. But to get a good look at the detail of the unusual bill, for instance, it's best to look at the well-lit specimen in a display case. Their bill is sensitive to touch and has nostrils at its tip instead of its base, as is usual with most birds. The female and male look almost identical, and although the average person's only hope of seeing one is in a place like this, it's pleasing to report that they're not in danger of extinction and in fact appear to be on the increase. They nest in natural hollows or burrows dug into the side of earth banks. The entrance is very narrow and acts as a squeegee, forcing the water out of the feathers as the Kiwi enters the nest. This prevents the bird from catching chills during the 75-day incubation period when the male hatches the enormous egg. The eggs, about a quarter of the bird's body weight, represent the largest egg relative to bird size of any bird in the world. They have been successfully bred in captivity, as zoologist Barry Kyler explains.
And you've been able to breed successfully here?
We've bred 6 chicks so far, out of 25 eggs, so our average is not too good.
Still a fair bit of growing to do yet, though.
Oh yes, he's only, he's only about a quarter the size yet, as he will end up.
And when they're first hatched from the egg, they're almost able to fend for themselves, aren't they? Like they've got all their feathers and so on, or do they still need to be tended by the parents?
No, they are hatched fully feathered. The female and the male tend to take a protective role only. The bird is on its own as far as feeding is concerned.
So it will gather its own food?
Oh yes, yes.
And quite capable of eating normally?
Oh yes, yes, yes.
And what would they eat in the wild, for instance?
Normally insects, worms, berries, even leaves if they get hungry enough. But insects will form the major part of their diet.
And how much would they eat in a day, do you know?
Well, in terms of worms, about 300 or 400.
As much as that?
Yeah.
Oh.
The adult birds here that we feed on meat get through half a pound of meat a day.
The Otrohunga Kiwi house not only offers a unique opportunity to see New Zealand's national bird, but also has a magnificent enclosure of fallow and red deer, the next most popular New Zealand animal. And this gives us the opportunity to answer Canberra man John McPherson's request to see the famous deer of New Zealand. Many people tend to associate deer with New Zealand, but they are in fact introduced and represent a good example of how introduced animals can multiply under ideal conditions until they reach undesirable numbers. The culling of the deer numbers has now developed into profitable industry, with shooters coming from all over the globe to hunt in the high mountain country. Enormous quantities of venison are exported each year, and the deer hides are used to make extremely fine quality suede leather. The heavy shooting programs, in some cases from helicopters, has driven the herds into the remote highland forests of the South Island, and it is only in well set up enclosures like this that visitors can enjoy the pleasure of watching these graceful creatures. The delicate features of the agile fallow deer make them the most popular with visitors, but in the adjacent enclosure are the much larger red deer. It is the mating season, and the stag is prancing about displaying his prowess. This fellow is about 6 years old. They shed their antlers each year, and each year grow new ones with an additional spike. 6 spikes, 6 years old. We could roam the countryside of New Zealand for a lifetime and never get film like this. But here at Otrohunga, we were able to answer Mr. McPherson's request to see these magnificent animals and David Stewart's letter on Kiwis, thanks to the Zoological Society, which has done such a good job of providing excellent facilities to see 2 of New Zealand's best loved animals.
A lot of viewers have written asking to see the platypus. Letters from all over Australia. Andrew Butcher of Bradbury, New South Wales, Caroline Pruer of Hagley, Tasmania, Andrew Parker of French's Forest in New South Wales are just a few who wrote and asked to see the platypus. Underwater, the platypus is extremely agile. It fossicks for small aquatic animals along the river beds. Platypus come out of their burrows at night to search for food. Platypus can be found in freshwater streams along the coast from North Queensland throughout eastern Australia to South Australia. They are not found in Western Australia. It has been suggested that the desert probably stopped it spreading further westward. The platypus is a monotreme, an egg-laying mammal. It shares this distinction with the echidna. They are the world's only 2 monotremes.
Platypus, because they're nocturnal creatures. This is the female. The female and the male take it in turns at burrowing a hole into the bank of a river where the female lays the eggs, and then she incubates the eggs over a period of 2 to 3 weeks. Then when the young are hatched, they feed. She doesn't have nipples, but they feed on the mother by rubbing the belly here until the milk secretes through the pores of her skin. And then when they're big enough to leave the burrow, they follow her, and then they live on worms when they grow to adult size like this one is. They're very soft, as you can see. This one's the male. It has on its hind leg a spur which is poison, or has a poison gland on it, and if you get jabbed by that spur, it won't kill you, but it'll make you very sick. You see it's quite big.
The poison is manufactured in a gland in the thigh. It is injected when the spur pierces the flesh. The poison produces similar symptoms to a snake bite and can hospitalise a man for several days. The poison is fatal to small animals. In museum tests, rabbits that were injected with a large dose died in 90 seconds. When the first specimens of the platypus were sent to England in 1800, the scientists there refused to believe such an incredible animal existed. They said it was a fake. It wasn't until 1802 that the first complete specimen was shown to prove that it really did exist. Many animals were trapped and killed for their fur. This practice was soon stopped, and the platypus is now totally protected.
Mr. Pat Heaney, a bus driver from Walgett in New South Wales, wrote to us suggesting that city children might be interested to know how children of the bush get to school. For the Clark family, the day begins early. Around 5 a.m, breakfast is served. In the winter, dawn is just breaking. but already little 6-year-old Sally Clark is up and dressed for school.
You gonna be a good girl for that on the bus today? Good.
Her 14-year-old brother Kenneth and her 12-year-old sister Wendy are also ready for school, but the school is 96 kilometres away. With breakfast over, they set off for the day. Kenneth drives the 4-wheel drive 3 kilometres to the main road when the tracks are muddy, and in the summer gives the 2 girls a lift each on a motorcycle. This part of the journey would be further than most city children have to travel, but this is only the beginning. Once at the main road, Kenneth will leave the Land Rover hidden in the bushes until they return home about 6 o'clock tonight. The Clarks live on a sheep station between the towns of Cooarenebri and Walgett in western New South Wales, and the road follows about 80 kilometres of the Darling River. For Kenneth and Wendy, this ritual has been taking place for years, and with the Darling River's reputation for flooding, the school bus has missed a few runs in that time. But for Sally in kindergarten, there are many years of long journeys in the school bus yet to come. All along the bus run, children of all ages wait in the early morning light for the school bus. But because the Clarks live so close to the Cooarenebri end of the run, none have so far to travel, and at such a tender age as Sally. The distances seem enormous by city standards. By the time Sally has completed her day, she will have travelled 192 kilometres and spent almost as much time travelling as she has in her school classroom. Sally's story was brought to our attention by her bus driver, Pat Heaney, who says he has an enormous admiration for the kids on his run. The first stop of the trip is the high school at Walgett, where Kenneth and Wendy leave Sally to continue the remaining few kilometres on to the primary school. For Sally, the long journey is over, and in the 15 minutes remaining before the bell rings, she has an opportunity to play with children of her own age.
What's the second picture, Alison?
The school day is much like the school day for any other kid Sally's age in Australia. But at the end of it, there is still the long journey home.
Now it's this thing. See the word? What's that, Michelle?
Sun.
The sun, and what's the last picture, Sally? That's the tree. Now turn it this way and look at the words.
Sally is doing well at school, and her parents feel the long journey is better than the loneliness that correspondence school would bring if she spent every day on the sheep station. This way, Sally looks forward to the weekends just as much as any other children, and enjoys the added attractions of life on the farm. The hard-working sheepdogs are more like family pets to Sally, and at the weekend she enjoys their company, and especially going riding on her very own pony. Kenneth has no interest in horses. He would rather fiddle about with one of the old mustering motorcycles and try to get it going. Wendy is like Sally and loves horses. At least they start easily. But sometimes they're a bit too spirited to catch. Sally's own black pony would be the envy of any 6-year-old, city or country. But there are few who would have the enormous backyard the Clarks have to enjoy riding. Perhaps this is some consolation for the long days of travelling when it's back to school on Monday. For the moment, Sally, Wendy and their mother enjoy the freedom of horse riding on the banks of the Darling River in western New South Wales. So next time the children complain about having to walk 2 blocks to school, spare a thought for Sally Clark.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, me in and then join in the fun. Travel all over Australia. Ask the Leyland brothers.